What's up, War Room? Welcome back. Joe Caparoso, Connor Rogers, ready to rip through a whole collection of Discord questions. We did the reverse order this week. Podcast already dropped yesterday. Another podcast already going to hit the feed tomorrow. And then
Urgent matters.
Urgent matters. We need that old school like afternoon day of training camp reaction pod, like in our younger days. Now we can take a breath. We can answer all your Discord questions in the thoughtful manner we always do. CR, how we feeling?
Good. Camp rolling. Pads are on. Obviously, some good drama, some bad drama. Wanting to sort through. The good thing is it's always July. It's still early. We haven't hit the Reddick 5 alarm date that you
soon.
said, Joe.
If we're talking about it the next time we record.
Next recording.
Yes. Also, next week's War Room, very, very special guest that we're very excited about. So stay tuned for that.
Probably top, easily Mount Rushmore Badlands guest.
Yes.
Someone we've had on, but still, it speaks
special.
for itself.
We're excited. All right. First question. Who else would I give it to? King of the Discord, Andy. Ready for the pod? Who will be the surprise snub and surprise player that will make the roster? Weird feeling Tack will be the snub and Bawden will be kept. So we've been saying this for a bit, and it kind of seems to be playing out. I think Clemens isn't going to make the roster, and I think that's going to come at the hands of Watts and Tack, which I think both would be surprises to make the team. I mean, certainly with Tack. I'm also starting to get, some Cohen vibes. Like, they talk about him so much, and there's all these clips. Like, are they going to keep him just as a returner?
He's doing a presser.
Yeah, and be like, Irv Charles, you know what? We don't need to keep 7 receivers. Like, we'll have someone else be the gunner. We're going to keep Cohen as like this like special team, run one screenplay a game to him guy.
Oh, man.
That's kind of where my head is kind of going towards. That we're a week into camp. So Cohen making it would be shocking. Tack making it would be shocking. Watt's not quite as shocking. We've talked about him a lot here. And then the cut, like, Clemens would be the biggest name.
He would be.
Is there someone else that I'm like missing that could get cut? That would be. It's obviously not going to be like a Lazard now. They're not going to be risky on the offensive line. It seems like Max Mitchell is kind of stabilized the backup spot. Maybe something in the secondary because Stiggers has been so good, but you're not going to knock Eccles off the roster.
No,
I don't know.
No.
Where's your head at on it?
Right. I think we've talked about Clemens because there's a good battle going on the defensive line. I think you could never fully underestimate the emotional aspect for coaches. Like, Clemens is a guy that Ulbrich and White Cotton and all these guys have been personally coaching and with now for 2 years, where if it's a tie, they probably stick with the player they know, which gives Clemens an advantage. But, it sounds like Tack has come in on fire. This is a guy that's been out of the league. He's a former first-round pick. He's always had talent. So there's definitely competition there. And to be fair, like, you're not cutting Will McDonald, right? So you have a lot of can't cuts. Locks, not can't cuts. That's a bad way to phrase that. That makes them sound like there's some, outside reason. Can't cut. Like, you're not cutting Jermaine Johnson, Javon Kinlaw, Quinton Williams, Will McDonald. I think we'd be floored if Solomon Thomas does not make this team. Just because
he's making this team. He will be here until, as long as Salah's here, Solomon Thomas will be here.
Right, exactly. It sounds like, Sherwood they've always liked Sherwood. He's had some moments. So there's not a lot of volatility, honestly. Like you said, there's just really not. It feels like if you're looking for somebody that was legitimately drafted and might not make the team, maybe Jalen Key, because he's a safety, and they moved Isaiah Oliver to safety. Bernard Converse is a safety, and you already have guys that are locks in Tony Adams, Chuck Clark, and Ashton Davis. But I don't know if people are really surprised when Mr. Irrelevant doesn't make a team. The defense just feels really, really locked. Man, Tariq Cohen, we've worked so hard to make this a big physical football team. If they find a roster spot for a 5'6", 180-pound, 28-year-old coming on, and Tariq Cohen seems like a great person. I'm rooting for his comeback, but it's just, this is a weird place for it to happen. You know what I mean? Where you got a returner already in Gibson, and then you have a million running backs who are better. Just honestly, they have 4 better running backs. I keep going back to this. It's an offense that uses a fullback, but I just don't know why Ruckert can't just do this full time. And listen, I know Rucker could do this full time. I don't know why they haven't embraced that yet. We yelled for this last summer, and then it happened in the Washington game. I want to say he had a lot of snaps at fullback in the Washington game. So that's it, because you're crunching numbers right now, right? For the Jets. I'm assuming this is a team that carries 2 quarterbacks. I guess the most surprising one to me can Malik Taylor push Brownlee?
Interesting. Yeah.
Right? Because
hurts
Taylor
us to
can
say,
fly.
but Taylor's playing above him.
You got to give him credit where.
Yeah.
Also, Malik Taylor is the Giants, like the end of the Giants game regulation, the least talked about big moment ever.
Malik Taylor and Xavier Newman won the game for us.
You never saw him again. It's very strange. So I guess that's one that'll be interesting. But like I said, and this is what happens when you have a really, really good roster. It's been a long time since I remember a camp like this. There's not a lot of these talking points. This is a good roster. It's got a lot of veterans. It's got a lot of established young talent. There's not a lot of wide open spots. You're literally looking at the 50 to 53 kind of area. And that might even be stretching it, because once again, I do think we as podcasters and fans, and media does this too. It's everybody. We really overlook the coach-player relationship. And there's probably guys that are bubble players in our minds on this roster that the coaches, they got to have those guys. But if Bodden, like you said, Joe, Bodden could be one of those guys. I don't view him that way, but you never know. The Jets might view him that way.
Just play Ruckert at fullback. This spot for Bodden, but
just
I would not be
Braylon
shocked
Allen
if they kept him.
at fullback.
Yeah, just play Braylon Allen. Like,
is he bigger than Nick Bodden? I need to actually.
He's bigger
look this
than
up.
every human alive, from what I've seen from looking at him in equipment.
They're almost the same exact size. They're both about 6'2", 245.
It feels very Jetsy to keep Nick Bodden and Malik Taylor and give them roster spots. I wouldn't be overly shocked if either of those happened or both of them happened, to be honest. Again, we're talking about guys who may be inactive most weeks, so don't go too crazy about it. All right, next one from Shogun. How much weight does something like draft status play into roster decisions at the bottom of the roster? For example, Michael Clemens isn't good if any of the trio, Watts, McGregor, or Taylor III, outplay him in the preseason. Could he be gone? Or would the fact that he was a 4th-round pick allow him to stay in the roster? Conversely, does Saleh watch the same player on film that we do to justify Clemens being on the roster, or does he forget what number he is? Because I feel like I'm watching a different player than he is sometimes. So basically, like how much of a built-in benefit do you get for being a draft pick and a draft pick of the regime? You wonder how much the coaching staff cares about that. The front office cares about it, but are they tipping the scales? And when it's a 4th-round pick from a few years ago, is it like, all right, it's not a 1st-round pick or a 2nd-round pick from like this year or last year? I would think, all things being equal, if you're deciding between Watts or Clemens, it's equally impressive for the front office to have a UDFA like make the team. And they haven't been shy about keeping UDFA around. So they loaded up on them last year on the roster on what was supposed to be a veteran win now roster. So I don't think like it's a tie goes to Clemens situation. If it is, it's maybe just because he has experience, but it's also a good look on the front office if your UDFAs are winning positional battles in camp and sticking on the team.
Right. And it's almost one of those situations where teams get so caught up in the short term and overlook the entire goal of the thing. The entire goal of the thing is to field the team that has the best chance to win football games. So if that's the case, you just got to swallow your pride on some picks and field the team that has the best chance to win games. Because the reality is, if the Jets win 11 games this year, will anyone care that they cut Michael Clemens at the end of camp?
No.
That's all it comes down to. So we'll see. You're right, though. I mean, at the end of the day, of course, GMs kind of gravitate. And it's also because, to be fair, you are evaluating and projecting. And if you truly believe in your projection, which is the whole point of your purpose, then what you see for the future of that player is different than maybe for what a player you brought in off the street is in terms of ceiling. And it is a league where, I always say this, coaches love floor and evaluators love ceiling. And that's where things become extremely convoluted, especially when it comes to roster cut down. So, and that's why having a coach and GM that work together extremely well is vital for the league. And that's why a lot of the great coaches demand roster control, because they just don't want to deal with the bullshit. I mean, truly, look at all the great coaches around the league. Most of them have roster control. So
if you're going to ask me to make the dinner, you may as well let me buy the groceries. Best Parcells quote of all time.
That's it, man. From the king of roster control, right?
That's it. So. Sign up for Badlands. I'm sorry. Sign up for Underdog using promo code Badlands. We have 2 drafts left in August, 2 more best ball, and then we're into week-to-week picks, which will be included in War Room every week, high or lower. We're going to do our big money draft in August, see our $100 buy-in. We'll do one more smaller $25 one. It's been a nice run of off-season strategy, drafts, picks. We're going to have an episode in August solely dedicated to this. How you feeling about your fantasy knowledge going into the season?
Well, I've done enough best ball drafts, pre-draft, post-draft, that I think this is all built up for our big players one. Like you said, Joe, the $100 buy-in, this is going to be high stakes. It's with the Badlands community only, which is the best part of all of this. It's going to be awesome. And then, like you said, you and I are big prop guys. The pick'ems are going to be just really fun to put together, especially some of the more underrated players on the roster that'll get in on the action as well. So we're ready to roll.
Remember, sign up with promo code Badlands at Underdog Fantasy. Get a 50% deposit match up to $250. That's promo code Badlands. Can be used for best ball, can be used for high or lower. We look forward to competing against you this NFL season. All right, this one, which I half serious, half entertaining, from NY Jets 1250. Tippmann is obviously still the guy as long as he's healthy, but with the Jets lacking a prototypical center backup, which option would you most prefer them to add via free agency? Mason Cole, Connor Williams, injury concerns in quotes, Nick Gates, or Connor McGovern? I'd personally like Cole. Also, how much higher would you be on the Jets' offensive coaching staff in regard the Jets could simply replace their coaches with our players?